Hey there folks, got an interesting one for you in this video. I initially heard about this case when I saw a comment that it was a possible death by Bigfoot. The truth of that scenario I will let you decide after watching the video, but it certainly gives me interesting material for a video title. Whatever is going on here, I think you'll find that the case is a bit of a mystery, with no single theory really fitting the circumstances perfectly. This case takes us to Minnesota and the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness located within the Superior National Forest. This area is a popular canoeing, fishing, and hiking location. It is also the most visited wilderness area in the U.S. This pristine and forested location is vast and filled with small lakes and rivers. In 2018, a man named Jordan Grider went to spend a winter camping in this location. There are plenty of dangers here, whether it be animals or harsh weather. Unfortunately, something happened to him out there. What was found was pretty disturbing. "29-year-old Jordan Grider was from Moriarty, New Mexico. He was an experienced outdoorsman and was considered something of an unconventional person. Jordan was known to sometimes up and leave for weeks at a time, where he would just live out in the woods. It was a way of life he had come to know and love. Growing up, Jordan struggled with reading and learning due to his dyslexia. He was homeschooled during that period. He had 5 brothers who followed a more conventional lifestyle as they grew up, but Jordan began to take to living off the grid more and more. In fact, prior to 2018, he had spent the past 10 to 12 years living in the woods of Kentucky and upper New York. So he knew how to take care of himself when he was left alone in the wilderness. He would tell people, "I'm not homeless, I have a home, I just choose to have it outside." In 2018, he decided he wanted to head north from New Mexico and live in the wilderness somewhere that was near water. He picked the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness, located in Minnesota, as his destination. A pretty good choice given its high density of ponds and lakes. Jordan had been visiting his parents and 5 brothers in New Mexico for a few months through the end of September 2018. By early October, Jordan had made it up to Minnesota and the Boundary Waters area. He parked his truck and set out into the woods, wandering and searching for a good place to build a campsite and live out the Minnesota winter. While in the area, Jordan did have a phone with him, as he used it to send a picture to his family of a beaver pond near his campsite. This message was sent on October 8th and was one of the last messages Jordan would send from his phone. It would seem Jordan left the area to at least once drive to the nearest store and purchase goods. This based on a receipt that would later be found in his possession and dated for October 9th. Sometime in early to mid-October, but after the 10th, a Forest Service agent noticed Jordan's truck parked in front of a gate that led to some private cabins. His truck was actually blocking access to the gate. The Forest Service agent had the truck towed to the Sioux Hustler Trail parking lot, with Jordan's family paying the tow bill. The Forest Service agent may have tried to find Jordan before towing the truck, but he was unable to discover where Jordan had gone into the woods. At the time, he had no reason to believe Jordan was in any trouble, so no search was started. Moving someone's vehicle like that can, in some instances, be dangerous. It reminds me of the Vance family in Colorado, if you recall that video. In this instance, at least the Forest Service agent was kind enough to have the vehicle towed to a nearby location, rather than some yard miles away. It seemed likely that Jordan would have used the Sioux Hustler Trail, so the hope was likely that he would see it when he came back out of the forest. On October 22, 2018, authorities were called to do a welfare check on Jordan. The problem was that nobody really knew where his camp was located. They were able to find a starting point for their search by using the photo Jordan had sent his family of the beaver pond. This welfare check was kind of like a search and rescue, except it wasn't. Only a few officers went out to look for Jordan, and they didn't find him. This didn't totally deter the authorities, however, as they knew Jordan was out there somewhere, and that he hadn't been in touch with any of his family for a while. He very well could qualify as a missing person at this time. Sometime in late October, a Forest Service agent discovered a baseball cap in the area around the Sioux Hustler Trail and kept it as potential evidence. At the time, there was no certainty as to whether or not it belonged to Jordan. Unfortunately, it wasn't until many months later, on April 5, 2019, that two Border Patrol agents, a Forest Service agent, and a Minnesota conservation officer stumbled upon something important related to the case in what appeared to be Jordan's campsite. It would seem they were in the area specifically looking for Jordan. One of the searchers saw a nice south-facing slope that would offer good protection from the north wind. The slope led right into the camping site. The conservation officer stated that it was a super remote place, and if you were looking for a spot to avoid contact with people, Jordan really did find it. The group contacted the St. Louis County Sheriff's Office to let them know they had updated information related to the status of Jordan Grider. They stated that they had found clothing and other items on the ground near the site, but they had not located Jordan himself. The discovery was near the Sioux Hustler Trail, and the officers on scene stated they found large amounts of blood in the area. 2 to 4 feet of snow on the ground made it difficult to not only travel in the area, but also to look for clues on the ground. Deputies from the Sheriff's Department showed up on location, and they immediately noticed Jordan's Chevrolet 2500 parked near the Sioux Hustler trailhead. Inside, they could see several large black garbage bags on the seat of the truck. They then met at the confluence of the Sioux Hustler Trail and the Echo Trail before heading to Jordan's campground via snowmobile. Upon arriving at the scene, the deputies stayed 500 feet away from the camp while taking pictures of the area. At this point, they weren't really sure if what they had was a crime scene or not. The first discovery was a dark piece of cloth lying in the snow that appeared to be a piece of shredded sleeping bag. It looked to them like there was blood on it. They also found a sleeping bag cover just north of the camp. Grass was found under the cover after it was moved, indicating the cover was there prior to the winter snowfall. South of the camp, they found a shredded jacket. When removed, the jacket also had grass under it. The campsite itself was nothing special. A green tarp hanging between 2 trees was being used in lieu of a tent. This can be a very common practice. Under the tarp was a hammock that was also tied between the 2 trees. Underneath the tarp and hammock appeared to be a large pile of camping equipment and other items. A relatively simple campsite. The disturbing part was that the hammock appeared to be covered in a large amount of dried blood. Inside the hammock they found a pistol, a Beretta 92 FS 9mm, and a number of other personal items. The hammock appears to be in great condition. The green tarp tent was cut in half and placed on the ground to be photographed. Authorities noted several areas of blood spatter on the inside of the tarp. Inside the hammock was a sleeping bag which also had blood on it. Upon further investigation, they discovered that the pistol was loaded and the safety was on. Deputies were unable to pull back the slide, probably due to corrosion. The gun had not been used. Some of the items found in this area include a sketchbook, a GoPro, a black wallet with $178 in cash, and a driver's license belonging to Jordan Grider, some mail with Jordan's name on it, a black stocking cap with blood on it, a blue inflatable pillow with blood on it, a plastic bag containing addresses and pens, and 2 keys. The initial determination made by the on-scene deputies was that a thorough search of the area would be much more efficient once the snow had melted. This makes sense since it certainly helps to be able to see the ground when looking for clues. Despite the discovery of what appeared to be blood, Jordan Grider was nowhere to be found. Authorities bagged up what evidence they could carry with the intention to return the next day for the rest. They decided to search for Jordan again once the snow melted and also bring in cadaver dogs to assist. A group of officers returned to the area on April 25th to search for human remains. This included numerous rescue squad members and folks from the Department of Natural Resources, the Forestry Service, and of course the Sheriff's Department. The group rode into the area on ATVs this time, and then split up with each man focused on finding anything relevant to the situation. Some personnel stayed at the campsite and collected Jordan's belongings and returned them to Jordan's truck, which was still parked near the Sioux Hustler trailhead. Authorities knew that the last known contact Jordan had with his truck was on October 9th of the prior year, based on a dated receipt found in his camp. Other investigators went around marking items that they deemed important with flags and numbers. On this same day, Jordan's truck and camp items were towed from the area. The following items were located and marked as evidence: a possible humerus bone, a possible rib bone, a couple unknown bones, a possible femur, a few pieces of green cloth that appeared to be from a sleeve or cuff, some black cloth and webbing, a black holster for a pistol, a shirt, another possible femur, a handgun magazine with ammo inside, a possible vertebrae, a bunch more fabric and webbing material, a possible forearm bone, numerous broken bone pieces, a gray sock, another handgun magazine with ammo, a Samsung cell phone that was in some pants near the camp area, and numerous other bits of cloth and materials. All of these items were collected and packaged. The bones were handed over to the medical examiner in hopes that they would be able to make some determinations from them. On May 11th, personnel returned to the campsite to search the area once again, now that the snow had subsided even more. This time they brought along a cadaver dog to help search for any more remains. The dogs did their job and found some additional pieces of clothing material and some bones, which were promptly turned over to the medical examiner. Jordan's Samsung cell phone was analyzed, and it was discovered that the last evidence of any messages being sent or received were on October 9th of 2018. There was nothing in the messages that indicated that Jordan might want to harm himself. There was a group chat to his family stating how much grain and beans he had bought, and that he was prepared for a long winter. All indications were that things were going normal, and Jordan was well. The last image was the picture he sent to his family on October 8th of the beaver pond. Nothing on the phone could help authorities figure out why Jordan had died. On May 31st, authorities met with Jordan's family to return some items found at the campsite and also take DNA samples for comparison to the bones found. The family showed deputies a video that was taken from Jordan's YouTube channel. Sadly, it no longer exists anymore, but the video showed Jordan using a military-style folding knife to shave his beard. Authorities were told that Jordan keeps his knives very sharp, and that it could be a possible explanation that Jordan accidentally severed an artery while shaving. On August 21st, 2020, authorities received the results from the skeletal remains that were sent off for identification. Based on the DNA samples taken from Jordan's family, they determined it was 621.4 billion times more likely that the bones were from someone related to the Griders than they would be from any unrelated individual. Basically, the bones were indeed Jordan's remains. Based on all the evidence recovered at the scene and also the statements from the family, investigators did not believe foul play was a factor in this case. The case was then officially closed, pending any new information. The exact cause of death remained undetermined. However, that's where all the questions arise from this case. You see, the authorities never came out with a theory as to Jordan's cause of death, though they did question his thinking when it came to trying to survive in a Minnesota winter. They felt he did not have enough food at his campsite, and they also said that they found no stove for cooking. The conservation officer who found Jordan's camp said that what really stood out to him was how insufficient his resources were. This itself may seem odd, as Jordan's main food source appears to have been grains and beans, but even without a stove, he could have cooked over a wood fire. A used fire pit was found in his campsite. It is possible that Jordan was planning to stock wood before winter and use that for cooking, though it would certainly have been wise to keep a stove for backup. He also could have been planning to take the occasional trip back to the nearest town in order to get more food or equipment. We really don't know what his whole plan was, as he didn't seem to tell anyone. But keep in mind that Jordan had spent 10 years or more living this way. I also want to mention that certain items were found but not listed in the police reports. Jordan was a musician, and he took a ukulele along with him. That was found and still in good condition. Also, a large assortment of knives appear to have been found. None of these knives were listed among the evidence in the police report. That may be because they were found in his truck instead of the campsite, but that seems a little unlikely. You'd think he would want to take his knives along too, because as his family mentioned, he really liked them. Not a single knife was listed among his belongings, yet the media released pictures of knives to the public. At least one of the knives seems to be rather weathered, like it's been sitting in the elements for a while. Some of the others also look a bit corroded. Now, obviously the authorities found a lot of items in his camp and maybe they didn't want to catalog it all. But when you are dealing with a situation like this, you would think it would be pretty important to catalog his assortment of knives if they were found near his camp, which was covered in bloodstains. Anyway, that's an aside. What matters is that it appears he had access to at least one blade, probably more. Jordan's mother, Rebecca Grider, had a couple theories as to what happened to her son. As stated in the police reports, her initial thoughts seemed to be that Jordan accidentally cut himself. She said that Jordan always liked to be clean-shaven and that he would sometimes use a very sharp knife to do this. According to his mother, he also spent a lot of time whittling. Both of these activities have the potential to kill you in a freak accident. You can cut your neck while shaving, and you can cut your femoral artery while whittling. The conservation officer who discovered the camp believed that something like this happened to Jordan. He also said that they found some things that looked like they could have potentially been used as bandages, and I would agree with that assessment. Once Rebecca Grider visited Jordan's camp, she was less certain about this theory. She could find no wood that looked like it had been whittled, and found no signs of wood shavings. Because of this, she felt that Jordan must not have been at the camp very long before he died. Rebecca also said that there were no blades found with any blood. All of Jordan's knives were still in their sheaths, and that fact pokes a big hole in this theory. If you severely cut yourself, either from shaving or from whittling, you are probably not going to take the time to resheath your knife. Then again, some of the material that was discovered and photographed does look like it was cut into strips and perhaps used as bandaging. If you were bleeding and took the time to do that, maybe you would wipe the blood off the blade and the knife did get resheathed. Looking at the pictures, it doesn't appear that any of these material strips were used as bandages. The accidental cut theory is certainly plausible, but it does have some holes. The other theory that Rebecca Grider came up with was that Jordan was attacked by wolves. She believed that a pack of wolves surprised and killed Jordan while he slept in his hammock. She believed he was caught the very first night he spent at the location. I'm not sure that could be accurate, as he was at the site on October 8th when he sent the picture of the pond, and he must still have been alive on October 9th when he bought more food. It would seem he was alive and staying there for at least a few nights. In a post she made to Facebook in 2019, she stated, "Last October, Jordan, 29, went to live and camp in the forest of Minnesota. He's lived that way for about 10 years. He didn't realize he'd moved into an area with an aggressive pack of timber wolves. I think they got him the first night." There is some evidence to support this theory. Though it was not noted in the sheriff's report, wolf scat and prints were located near the campsite. Photographs of the scat actually exist to verify this report. Wolf experts seem to have largely dismissed the idea that Jordan was attacked and killed by wolves, however. One expert said that the chances of an attack are infinitesimally small. He's not wrong either. In the last 20 years, there have only been 2 recorded attacks on humans in North America that resulted in death. One was a 22-year-old man who was killed in Saskatchewan, Canada in 2005. It appears multiple wolves stalked and attacked him before he finally succumbed. Authorities said they found multiple scuffle sites where he appeared to try and fight off the animals. The other incident occurred in 2010 in Alaska, where a 32-year-old woman was attacked and killed by multiple wolves. There are other incidents as you continue to go further back in history, but it has been a very rare occurrence for quite some time. You might also note that the more recent attacks occurred in the north of the U.S. mainland, in Canada and Alaska, where the territory is certainly more wild. In Minnesota, wolf attacks are even more rare. What has been described as the first known wolf attack in Minnesota occurred in 2013, when a 16-year-old boy was attacked by a wolf with a deformed jaw. The boy punched and kicked the wolf until it ran away. It was later trapped and killed, and it is believed that the deformed jaw prevented the wolf from properly scavenging. Therefore, it would have been starving when it made the desperate attempt on the 16-year-old. Obviously, wolves are certainly capable of killing humans. The issue with using wolves as an explanation for what happened to Jordan Grider comes when you consider the state of his campsite. The theory goes that Jordan was attacked while asleep in his hammock. That's why there was blood in it, and that's why he didn't get a shot off with his pistol. The problem with that theory is that the hammock was in good condition. If wolves had attacked him while in it, it should have been torn to pieces. A wolf expert talking about this case named Thomas Gable also said that he would have expected the campsite to feature greater signs of a struggle, and the result should have been messier as well. He thought it more likely that wolves came along later and devoured an already dead body, which is completely reasonable. So the wolf explanation seems plausible, but it also doesn't fit perfectly with what was found. It's also worth noting that outside of Alaska, Minnesota has the highest population of gray wolves in the entire country at around 2,700. So these are the two theories that have been developed around the death of Jordan Grider. There are a few things that stick out to me when I look at the photographs of where Jordan died. His boots were found underneath the tarp tent. It seems clear that he wasn't wearing them at the time he died. Really, the only time I would imagine that Jordan wouldn't be wearing his boots is when he is about to go to bed, sleeping, or waking up. It seems a reasonable assumption that whatever happened to Jordan, it happened while he was in his hammock. Additional support for this idea is the fact that most of the blood was found in the hammock. It seems to rule out wolves in a way, because I can't imagine them attacking him in the hammock without damaging the hammock itself. And he would have had a very nice Beretta within reach to defend himself if he had the opportunity. Could the wolves really have killed him before he had the chance to grab it and get a round or two off? It seems unlikely. In addition to that, most of the clothing and material found around his camp doesn't necessarily look torn apart. It simply looks weathered. The tent area just does not have the appearance of a place where a pack of wolves killed a man. So then we have the accidental cut theory. It does seem pretty clear he wasn't whittling, because there's no evidence for it. No whittled wood, no wood shavings, etc. The only thing left would be a cut from shaving. But then that theory looks like what? He wakes up in the morning, hasn't put on his boots yet. He decides he is going to shave first thing. I would have thought that he would want to shave down by the water of the beaver pond, but maybe he wanted to shave by his hammock. If he wasn't using a mirror and accidentally cut his neck in just the right way, it could be the answer. You would have to cut yourself pretty good and in the exact right spot to cause a wound that would cause you to bleed out. Maybe he tried to cut strips of cloth for bandages, but realized they wouldn't work. It could be that he realized he wasn't going to make it, so he laid down in his hammock and bled to death. One of the items that had a lot of blood on it was a ski cap, which could indicate that the wound was close to the head. Then again, no knife was found with blood on it, and they were all sheathed. Would he really take the time to do that? Did the wolves come along and pull his body out of the hammock without tearing it to pieces? This is one of those cases where you wonder if there was some sort of foul play, but then again, he was in a location few people would think to go. And of those people who might think to go there, what are the chances that they would be the type to want to kill someone, seemingly at random? I tend to believe his mother when she says that the campsite did not look very lived in, meaning he had not been there for very long before he died. He arrived and something happened fairly quick. Was it an accidental cut? Was it wolves? It's really hard to say. There's something about this occurring right when he entered the area that could indicate an attack. There was a new scent in the region, and that might have caused animals to come and investigate. Then again, I could also see a scenario where maybe Jordan hadn't shaved with a knife in quite a while. He had been staying with family in Moriarty prior to this, after all, living under a roof with running water and all the other common amenities that we are so used to. Maybe he was a little rusty and accidentally cut himself. It's really difficult to pin down a good theory on this one. A lot of the mystery in this case comes from the fact that we don't really have a body. That's not necessarily unusual because his body was out there for many months, and there are plenty of scavengers in this area. But they only found a few bones. Some of them were broken. The breaks can be chalked up to animal predation, especially from wolves. They never found any larger bones either. No pelvis, no rib cage or spine, no scapulas or skull. Now those things were probably just dragged off and will never be found. But they would have potentially provided additional evidence. I find it's a shame that the sheriff doesn't report or talk about evidence of bite marks on the bones. I would certainly imagine there were some. In the end, nature itself can be pretty good at the hiker's motto of leaving no trace. The problem is, it leaves us with a mystery, a bloody campsite, and a man who will no longer return home to his family. It is another one of those cases where you see an experienced individual who dies from unknown causes. With over 10 years of living like this, Jordan Greider had a lot of experience. But experience isn't everything. Anything can happen to you in the wilderness. As always, let me know in the comments what you think about this case. Was it a cut from shaving? Was it eaten by wolves? Was it killed by Bigfoot? And until next time, thanks for watching.